Welcome to the Super Football preview here on The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. We'll get to the NFL later on in the program. Michael Davis and I will talk all about the NFL. We'll get to it. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. But Mr. Collegiate Pigskin, that's what we're going to call him for the purposes of this program, Steve Wiseman joins us. Steve, last week our focus was centric on conference realignment, but let's get to what's going to be on the field this year. As we know, you spent your time at ACC Media Days in Charlotte. Haven't gotten to pick your brain about that yet, but what were some of the big takeaways that you got from what you heard from coaches and players that were there?
Well, first of all, and this goes into the realignment talk too, because it's Florida State. So Florida State is the big story because they're back, right? They won 10 games last year, and they got Jordan Travis back and all that, and Jared Verse at along the line there. He's one of the freaks on the athletic freak list. So there, I picked Clemson to win the ACC again. When I voted in my top 25 poll, my first ballot for the preseason, I had Florida State ahead of Clemson. It was like 8 and 9, I think, because I think right now Florida State is, if they played right now, Florida State's a better team today. But I think by the time the season's ending, I got more faith in Dabo than I do Mike Norvell and the crazy train down in Tallahassee. Something's going to go wrong down there. I just have a hunch that anyway. I think Clemson's better, and that's what a lot of people are talking about. Back to your point at ACC Media Day, but the fact that the ACC has two teams that are worthy of top 10 votes going into the season is what this conference needs, right? Desperately. They're crying out for that. Maybe Miami can get off the schneid and do what they used to do. And that would, all this stuff would have been solved long ago if those teams would just be who they were when they signed up for the ACC. But anyway, I've gone off.
And now Florida State wants to leave again. As soon as they're good, they want out.
Right. This is not 1997. They think it's still 1997, and it's not.
People seem to forget, even Florida State seems to forget, that for the second year in a row, they opened their season against LSU on a Sunday night.
And last year, they won a crazy game at the end, right?
Yep.
And could have easily blown it. So It's not like they're walking into that, hey, we got this. No, you don't. Brian Kelly's team's going to be better this year than they were last year by far. So, yeah, they'll get a chance right off the bat to show if they're really back, and we'll know. But so, yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of eyes on it, too, considering that it's that only game on that Sunday on Labor Day weekend.
Absolutely. And just like the next night, the ACC gets it with Clemson and Duke. Now, that may not be close, but Duke's a better team now. Anyway, that's something else that was talked about at Media Day was, Duke is in these high-profile games. And the Monday night, Labor Day night after the first big weekend of college football, and that's your standalone game. How far has Duke come to be in that game, right? They've just got to, they can't go out there and get beat 40-10. That would be a nightmare for the program. But anyway, so there's some big games early. South Carolina, North Carolina, on Saturday night of that weekend on ABC in Charlotte, game days there. Those are all big matchups that, back again to what was talked about at Media Day, the conference needs to win these games. Those non-conference games, Saturday and Sunday. It's absolutely essential that the league, win. They can't get swept. They have to win at least one of those two games.
And of course, there's some other big non-conference matchups that ACC teams are in, but those are really the two marquee ones. And before we get to Duke, I'm hearing a lot of chatter from North Carolina fans that think this is going to be like the year for them. Their ACC schedule, it's tough. Their non-conference schedule, maybe even tougher. When you look at first 2 weeks, you've got South Carolina neutral site, you've got App State at home, and then go from there. that's two pretty good opponents to start off.
Again, they'll be tested quickly, and we'll know quickly who they are, and if Drake May is going to be the Heisman candidate that he's, they're presenting him as, and he should be. He means the rating conference player of the year. He's a tremendous quarterback. So, but if they lose one or two of those games, you know how it goes. It's going to be hard. Even if he throws for 500 yards in both of them, he's going to drop off a little bit, right? Because your team can't be doing that. He's not going to throw for 500 yards against South Carolina. I'm pretty sure about that. Anyway, but yeah.
He might against App State. He did it last year, but then again, App State also threw for 500 yards.
Exactly. That was a whale of a game for sure.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. So Carolina was, the team for the first 10 games of last year. They were 9-1, and they finished 9-5. So they've got to prove that, they're not the team they were the last month when they got complacent or decided not to try or whatever happened to them. They can't do that again, because the first 2 weeks they'll get knocked upside their heads, man. They'll be knocked out.
When we look at your neck of the woods specifically, not that Chapel Hill's that far from you. It's like, a stone's throw from who you usually cover. But when you look at, you mentioned how far Duke has come, and you've been around this program for years, but also through this transition from the old coaching staff to the current coaching staff, to see how far this program has come to Labor Day night marquee ACC opener. Yeah, that's great. That might not even be the toughest game on Duke's ACC schedule. They might have the toughest conference schedule of any team when you look at it as a whole.
Yeah, because they have to go to Tallahassee. That's probably going to be the toughest game, I think. And then, of course, they have to go down the road to Chapel Hill too. But anyway, yeah, it's pretty hard. I mean, that's what last year they went 8-4 in the regular season. From that schedule, you take BC off and Temple off, and you replace them with Florida State and Notre Dame. So, you look at it. If you go 6-6, you've really accomplished something, right? So that's why I look at it that way. But here's what it is: every game last year, they were in it. The 4 losses were by combined 16 points. So, Elko has shown and proven that they're going to be competitive. Every game to the end. Every game was a one score finish. They had a chance to tie or win in every one of them. And so, and again, it wasn't against a schedule like this year. I understand that. I pointed out quite a bit. But the key is, Cutcliffe had Duke in some important games. They opened the 2019 season in Atlanta in the Chick-fil-A kickoff against Alabama. Now, they didn't have to do that game. They could have scheduled whoever non-conference and probably won it. And they went 5-7 this year. They would have been 6-6. They would have been in a bowl game. But Cutcliffe at that time, they were coming off 6 bowl games in 7 years. They thought they were ready for something like that, and they went out and lost 42-3. Okay, it was close in the first quarter, and then Alabama did what Alabama does. So that's the kind of game they can't have on their home field Labor Day night. If they've really grown as a program, which Elko thinks he has, and there's a lot of signs that they have, but they have to be competitive in those games too, and either win or keep it tight. They can't go out there and get annihilated.
And we'll talk about that as we get closer to that game. But if anything, I think you're going to get the closest to a Cameron Indoor-like atmosphere at Wallace Wade Outdoor Stadium that you've ever gotten, at least in your time there. I mean, that place is going to be loud.
Yes, and there'll be a lot of orange. There'll be many Clemson fans there.
There will, okay? Yeah.
Not to kid ourselves, but yeah, that's the start of a brutal stretch. I will say, unfortunately for the ACC schedule and unfortunately for Duke, they will not have a weekend game at home when the students are on campus this year.
Ooh, that kind of stinks. But such is the nature of college sports. Yeah. Right. Then again, we know Clemson travels well anyways. If you live in Winston-Salem, every time they come to Wake Forest, that entire other end of the bleachers is orange. And everyone knows how to spell. I mean, they have to remind themselves how to spell every time the fight's on.
They have trouble at the end. They have to pause.
They start to pause a little bit on the end because I think they're running. Yeah, never mind. We're not gonna. that's a dead horse joke, although it is still
Right.
funny. The two kind of unknowns, Carolina and Duke, for me, we kind of know or have a general idea of who they're going to be or who they have the potential to be. The other end of this Tobacco Road, NC State and Wake Forest are, to me, way more unknown. There's a lot that could go right. There's a lot that could go wrong because of the talent on both of those teams that went out the door. But both teams have very good recruiting classes that are coming in. So it's hard to really pinpoint, for me at least, where those two programs stand as far as what we can expect from them this year.
Yeah, let's start with NC State because they brought in Brennan Armstrong, who 2 years ago was incredible at Virginia, and last year was completely lost. The coaching change did not sit well with him. Whatever happened, now he's reunited with his old offensive coordinator from Virginia, Robert Anae, and everybody thinks they're going to plug in. They're going to be back to he's going to throw for 5,000 yards. Now, if he does that, NC State's going to have a chance to go to the ACC championship game, right? But I have to see it. Number one, he had some really good receivers at Virginia. He'd been in that system, Bronco Mendenhall and all that, and I know his coordinators here, but NC State doesn't, on paper, have those kind of receivers like Virginia had that year. So NC State does have a deep running back room, so they got a pretty good running game to go along with that, and their defense is going to be pretty good. They got Peyton Wilson back there in the middle of that defense. Maybe candidate for ACC Defensive Player of the Year. So there's a lot of talent there for them, but it has to start at quarterback. Like any team, any game, any time in football, it starts with a quarterback, and Armstrong's got to prove that he's that guy. Now, Wake Forest has a new quarterback, Mitch Griffiths, who has been on campus for I think 6 years, and he's only like a sophomore. But that's the way the COVID thing goes.
I think he's related to Hunter Renfrow. Maybe.
He's been a backup. I mean, he certainly knows the system, the slow mesh system. So, and we have to say, Clausen's deal, they've traded one quarterback for another over years, right? Different kinds of quarterbacks. Kendall Hinton, John Wolford, right? Newman, and then of course Sam Hartman, and they keep producing. So I believe that Mitch will be a good quarterback this year. I really think he will be. It's just a question of what's around him now, right? Because they lost Donovan Green, wide receiver, who was expected to have a big breakout year, and that's a horrible thing for that kid for his injury. But so, I got to see what's going to happen, and with their depth, that's always a problem at Wake and Duke. And as the year goes on, if they're going to be not as good in the second half as they are in the first half, that kind of thing, they might be due for a little step back. I still think they're going to be a bowl team, but we'll see. And I don't think it's because of the quarterback.
Yeah, but when you look at NC State, they've definitely got a little bit of a more experienced defense right now than I think Wake Forest has, because Wake lost a lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball as well. Everyone needs to take note of what Wake Forest actually calls a specific portion of their slow mesh. They call it hang and bang. I'm not kidding. They actually call it this. I'm going to leave that there. Anyways, Steve, give us a sleeper team in the ACC this year. A team that really not on anybody's radar, that's just going to blow everybody out of the water and be like, well, where'd they come from?
Louisville, because they have a very easy schedule compared to especially compared to Duke. And right. Louisville, Duke plays at Louisville later on in October. But, the new coach came in, Jeff Brom from Purdue, the former Louisville quarterback. He's brought some talent in the transfer portal. They weren't a bad team last year. They were just dysfunctional under Scott Satterfield, right?
They also weren't a good team.
Right. But they ended up going to a bowl game and winning, right? It was with that weird thing with Cincinnati where he was coaching both teams or whatever the heck.
Yeah, that was
one on there. But anyway, I think that with the coaching change there, we could see what we saw with Duke last year, where there's a good base of talent. It just needs to be coached better, and I think he could do it. And given their schedule, There's a team. I'm not saying they're going to go to Charlotte or anything like that, but
Right.
that's a team that may be up much higher than we're thinking they're going to be in the new divisionless world of ACC football.
Yes, that is right. We do not have divisions in ACC football this year, which I think my sleeper team's Virginia Tech. I don't know why. It's not because of their schedule being easy or hard or what. I just have a feeling that something has been brewing in Blacksburg the last couple of years, and that program is ready to get back to where it has been in the past.
Well, speaking of programs that need to get back and carry their weight in the ACC, that's another one. If Virginia Tech was doing Virginia Tech things, then that's another problem the ACC wouldn't have to worry about, right? But they do, because I think they won 4 league championships in their first 7 years in the ACC, and then
Right.
Have been pretty much awful or mediocre and awful since then. So you're right, there's something brewing there. I'm not sure if this is the year or it's going to be a year from now, but yeah, from talking to the writers in Virginia, it seems like the Cavaliers are going to be just a bad team. They're not going to win. They're going to be lucky to win 1 or 2 games, is what I hear.
The over under
better, but
yeah, I think the over under for Virginia is at 2 wins, and I'm even hesitant to even go even on that. Not only are they're strapped for talent, their schedule is just a gauntlet and a half. I mean, it is hard.
That's rough for Tony Elliott to have to. That's another team that the changing of the division, the elimination of the divisions, hurts them, right? You could, the old days, the Coastal, you could kind of hide out and try to find your way and get. There were some wins there every year were kind of not built in, but your chances are better than not. That's not the case anymore, and so that's more fair to the league for sure. But Virginia's going to bear the brunt of that this year and next year probably.
And Virginia's even got a gauntlet of a non-conference schedule as well. They'd be lucky to come out of their non-conference situation with even 1 win. I mean, they've got James Madison on there, and William and Mary probably has the best team they've ever had FCS wise. James Madison's only in their 3rd year of FBS, but we know what they've done in the past, and we know what they did in the Sun Belt last year. First year, official year they moved up, they make a bowl game. So Virginia's not starting off easy, and their conference schedule's a gauntlet on top of that. One more question. Of the big four in our area, who is your pick out of those 4 to make the ACC championship game?
It would be Carolina. If I'm going to pick one of them, Carolina, because again, Drake May can cover up for a lot of problems with his abilities. They need to get Tez Walker eligible. We didn't talk about that, but the transfer from Kent.
That's a big looming cloudy if on that program right now.
Right, because Josh Downs, was really good last year. A great connection to Drake May. He could certainly use. I think Tez Walker could step right in and be that good, given what he's done in his career. But more than that, but your question was about the big 4, and I still think, even despite the Tez Walker problem, Carolina, I voted them 25th and they're in my poll at 25. So national. So they were the 3rd team from the ACC that I had in my poll. So I think Carolina is better than the other 3, and obviously Duke. Their schedule makes it impossible for them to make a run for the championship. It's just too much this year. And then Wake, I think, might be a little step back. NC State would be kind of a wild card. If they can, again, if Armstrong can throw for 5,000 yards, they could be in Charlotte. So that could happen.
I think with all 4 of these teams, things need to be proven, well, one way or the other, but I'm excited to see where it goes. That, ladies and gentlemen, is America's smartest Associated Press voter, Steve Wiseman. Thanks for coming on the program.
Glad to be with you, man.
All right, Michael Davis is on the other side. I'm going to yell at him about not believing in Jordan Love, among other things, and we'll talk about the Carolina Panthers as well. But as you can tell, I'm in Packers garb. So he thinks the Packers are going to be terrible, but he just listens to what everyone else says. So we'll get into that and a lot more. Steve, we'll catch you on the flip side there.
Very good.
Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccaroadsportsradio.com, WWBG 1470 AM Greensboro. We're here every Saturday morning, and we are joined on this Super Football preview edition of The Score with Brett Wiseman by Michael Davis, who hosts a number of programs, including not limited to, but these are on the list of things that he does. He's got a Cowboys podcast. He's got a Panthers podcast. And he's got Out of Pocket with Michael Davis, which is aptly named because he has a lot of things that he says and that other people say on his show that are out of pocket, as the kids say. Well, no, we're going to get to your most out of pocket things next segment. So,
Brett, none of my takes are out of pocket. I don't know where you're getting this from.
Cap. I'm wearing cap because I'm detecting cap. Anyways, I figured I would have a Cowboys fan on with me, a Packers fan, to give you all in the Panthers listening area a bit of a what do we think as the Panthers aren't our number one team, Panther fans? What do we think as, yeah, we live here. So we, of course, are going to root for the Panthers unless they're playing our teams. And we, of course, want the Panthers to succeed because it's good for the region. It's good for us. Gives us stuff to talk about. Unlike last year where every time we talked about the Panthers, it was, what next could go wrong kind of thing. There was a lot of negative things to talk about. This year, I think we're going to have a lot of fun things to talk about. But I wanted to have Michael on, before we get to the rest of the NFL, to talk about what we as not number one Panthers fans think of this team and expect from this team. And you had discussed this on your show a number of times as far as Bryce Young is concerned. Is it, the question has been asked, it's been begged, it's been beaten like a dead horse. Is he the guy? Can he be the guy? We haven't seen him be the guy. And I've heard some of your panelists on your fine program allude to, I don't know, I haven't really seen enough to make that kind of decision. And then, you or Desmond comes in with the logic that some of the other guys on that panel don't have sometimes, which is, hey, Bryce Young played at the Alabama of high schools. He then played at Alabama. Like, he's been the guy everywhere he's ever been. So I don't understand where this notion is coming from that Bryce Young can't be the guy. He can't lead an offense. He can't lead a team. It's all he's ever done. It's all he's ever done. No other Alabama quarterback had won the Heisman Trophy before him. I get it. I am hearing the things that you all are saying. Oh, he hasn't done anything in the NFL yet. The things that you and I have heard that are happening in training camp, they're letting the guy experiment with plays that aren't even in the playbook yet. Like, and I'm not making the comparison to Tom Brady, but I can count on less than one hand. I can count on Jason Pierre-Paul's right hand. So 3 fingers. But yeah, I made that joke. The guys that could
out of pocket.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. Thank God it's Saturday. I could count on those 3 fingers the guys that were allowed to experiment because they knew their own playbook that well already. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning. These are football-savvy quarterbacks. Bryce Young has, to me at least, a mixture of different kinds of quarterbacks. Yeah, he's mobile. He can do the RPOs. They're going to work those in there. He's got a cannon for an arm. And I said this when we were talking about, us and the guys that, talk that were on the score a lot last year. on this program. And we still talk a lot. And, one of the things we talked about at draft time was, all right, who's the smarter quarterback? CJ Stroud's got the physical attributes, but Bryce Young is like 4.8 GPA football IQ, which is why, personally, I think he's the right guy. Otherwise, they would have given him a starting job in minicamp. I think he had that good of a grasp on what Frank Reich wanted to do with this offense and what Josh McCown wants him to do as a quarterback. I think he had that good of a grasp of it in minicamp that they gave him the job, and now once we've gotten into training camp, he's absolutely run with it. Did he look really good in the first season game? Not really. But he also didn't play it. The game wasn't even a game, really. It was a terrible outing, but again, it's week 1 of the preseason. I think there's more to be taken away for me as far as positives and, things to back up our sentiment of, yeah, he can be the guy. There's more takeaways to add to that from training camp than anything else. Because what I've heard and what you've heard at a training camp is this is going to work.
Well, and everybody's saying like, oh, he hasn't played an NFL game yet. Look back to when Trevor Lawrence came out of the NFL draft. Look at when Andrew Luck came out of the draft. We were like, okay, that guy has it, and he didn't even have to play a regular season game. And everybody, kept going with Young versus Stroud. Oh, Carolina should take Stroud because Bryce Young's like 5'9", aka, go short Kings. We got him. But dude, like, there's a video surfacing online. I've mentioned this several times on the Cat Cave, several times on Out of Pocket. Like, there is a video surfacing of Josh McCown before he was hired as Panthers quarterback coach and before the Panthers trade up to number 1, of him analyzing Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and watching Josh McCown, who is the Panthers quarterback coach now, review film from Bryce Young, review film from CJ Stroud. I was convinced. It was like, oh, it's Bryce Young. There was no doubt in my mind when the Panthers were on the clock at number 1 who they were taking. And with everything that Josh McCown said, he's like, I can work with this guy. I can work with this guy because it's not about the height. It's about the strength in his upper body that he plays with. And again, you say his IQ. I think I've been more impressed with that, of how he's been able to adapt and transition into the NFL just through minicamp, training camp, preseason. And it'll take a minute. Like, this isn't a Super Bowl team yet. It's going to take him time to get those in regular season reps. And let's not forget, the Panthers restructured their entire offense. New quarterback, new running back, new wide receivers, new tight end. Okay, a couple new pieces on the offensive line. New quarterbacks coach, new offensive coordinator, new head coach. Like, everything is brand new. It takes time. So if Carolina's not, 14-3 after this season, don't get alarmed, okay? But they should be the favorites to win this division.
And I think that's the really important thing for us as fans of different teams in this region, is for us to tell all of you diehard Panthers fans to temper your expectations just a little bit, because as with every young quarterback and every young offense, like, the pieces around him aren't that experienced either. Outside of Adam Thielen, what's the maximum level of experience for his receivers, tight ends, linemen, running back? What, 5-6 years in the NFL, maybe at most?
You got Hayden Hurst, you got Miles Sanders, but it's like, this is a really young team. Jonathan Mingo, though, dude, I think Bryce Young's great, but there's a huge part of me who wants to say that Jonathan Mingo is going to be the best prospect that the Panthers took this spring.
Jonathan Mingo is, as the kids say, a dog, and he's going to show it, and in a big way. I don't think the Miles Sanders acquisition gets talked about enough. I think more people focused on the Hayden Hurst and the Adam Thielen additions, which are great veteran guys for Bryce Young to throw the football to. I don't think enough people are talking about Miles Sanders, and I think that Laviska Shenault could be an X factor in the running game. I think he could end up being a Cordell Patterson type guy that they'll draw into the backfield every 3 or 4 plays and hand the ball off to, throw him some screen passes. The main point, and you touched on the division, and Desmond and I had made this point on this show, and I think I'd made this point in the comment section of your show. When you look at this division, the Panthers are really the only team that I see that we know where all the pieces of their puzzle fit. We don't know what Bryce Young's going to do, but we have an idea of what this team can do. I think there's more potential with this team than a Saints team with Derek Carr and a bunch of guys over the age of 35.
Dude, can we say how dumb it is right now? Sorry for you Saints fans, but it's so dumb to think that the Saints are going to be really good this year just because you know them. Derek Carr had a top 5 running back, had a top 5 receiver last year, and Josh Jacobs and
top
Devontae
2
Adams,
receiver,
and did nothing, absolutely nothing with the Raiders. Okay, why do you think he's going to go to the Saints, where Alvin Kamara is pushing 30, and
suspended?
Michael Thomas hasn't been in the NFL in 4 years. This is insane.
Can't stay on the field
to me. He can't. He's hurt all the time. He'll get suspended. He's not reliable. So why do you think that Derek Carr just lessened his weapons and is going to make a push for the division? If I still think Carolina wins the division, I don't think Tampa's a factor at all.
We don't even need to talk about Tampa. John Wolford could end up starting for them at this point.
But there are questions surrounding the Atlanta Falcons. But I feel like the Falcons are going to finish second in this division.
I wouldn't rule that out at all. And I like that you brought that up because I think just as there's a lot of expected or unexpected with Bryce Young, I don't think Desmond Ridder got the chance to show what he could do last year because he basically came in at a point in time where the Falcons had used all of Marcus Mariota that was usable at that point. And they hadn't centered the offense around Desmond Ridder being the starter. Now they go into the season knowing he's the guy. He could do some great things. Listen, Derek Carr's reason for wanting out of Las Vegas, he said that when they made his wife cry was when he wanted out. Dude, if I threw every 5 or 6 of my passes to the other team and played like absolute dog duty, my wife would cry too.
You said duty.
Ha ha. We are on terrestrial radio, so I can't say the word I actually wanted to say because the FCC's listening. But, dude, if I played that bad, my mom would cry, my dad would cry, my girlfriend would cry. He needed a fresh start. He's got it. But, for me, there's too many unknowns. And when you look at the Carolina defense, there is so much talent on that defense. I mean, we could sit here and do a whole nother segment just on Carolina's defense. And they just added another piece to it a couple of weeks ago, a veteran piece. That when you slide Justin Houston in there with Brian Burns and the way the secondary is set up right now, and that front line, that front 7 is good enough. The secondary is just as good, if not better. This is a defense that is deep, I think is more talented than any other defense in the division. And I know, I'm hearing it, the Saints have Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan's 55 years old. Sorry.
He's definitely up there. Now, my big concern with Carolina is two things. One of them being their offensive line. They struggled that first preseason game against the Jets, so we'll have to see how they bounce back.
Granted, that was probably the best pass rush they're going to face this preseason because we know how good the Jets pass rush was last year, but this is an offensive line that they've had to remake on. This is like the second or third time they've had to shift things around in the past few years. So that would be the big question mark.
And then on defense, I think their secondary is their weakest point, particularly when it comes to health. J.C. Horn hasn't been able to stay healthy. Dante Jackson hasn't been able to stay healthy. And that's a struggle because there's not a lot of depth at the corner position. So, but if J.C. Horn stays healthy, he can be a top 10, 12 corner in the league.
Yeah, you said it right there. I mean, both those guys could be one of the top corner duos in the league. They just have to stay on the field. When you have the pass rush that they do right now, when you throw in Justin Houston with Brian Burns, those are two guys coming off the edge that if I'm a group of tackles on an O-line, I'm quivering. I'm a little bit timid every time I line up that I'm going to get swim moved, bull rushed, or as fast as both those guys are, one of the two of them is just going to flat run past me and blindside my quarterback. I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that any of the other offensive lines in that division have anybody at left or right tackle that can, given down after down, block one of those two guys and keep them out of the backfield. You cannot sit here and tell me that.
It could be. Dude, I feel like this Panthers team is just set up. Like, I think it's set up for success. Again, they should win the division. Now, Grant, if they were in division like the AFC West, nah. So if they were in division like the NFC East, nah. Okay, but they do benefit from Tampa's probably tanking for Caleb Williams.
100%.
The Saints have Derek Carr with an aging receiving core, aging running back. Atlanta, I'm really high on Atlanta, especially if Bijan Robinson, comes together. But then what do they have on defense? Like,
exactly.
There's question marks. Carolina is the one team where it's like, yeah, offensive line, yeah, secondary. But everything else pretty much helps, especially their punter, Johnny Hecker. Not a lot of people are talking about field position so huge.
Yep.
In the NFL. Like, you just can't overlook this team. And if they make the playoffs as a division champ, they've done what they needed to. Depend on who they meet up with in the playoffs, that's another story. But sorry, bro, it's not going to be your team.
Okay. Now that he's opened that can of worms, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I've got some things that I need to hash out with Michael about some things that he said last week that, let's just say, I firmly disagree with. We'll be back after this. Back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, WWBG 1470 AM Greensboro. We're here every Saturday morning. Michael Davis is back with us. His show, Out of Pocket, Fridays at 3 now, not 4, but 3, so that our high school football can get in. Had a great debut game last night for our high school football slate. Grimsley and Mount Tabor was our Forsyth County game of the week. I was out there for that one with Chase and Mike. That was fantastic football out there in Tabor City. But, Michael, last week you had that little quarterback segment thing. And I knew as soon as I put the question in the chat.
Which, by the way, thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting. It's always good to see your comments, even though they may be very biased towards your team.
Is it clear or that I'm biased or no? Okay.
Big
Anyways.
Chicago Bears guy right there.
Anyways, you say the word, you even say the name of the city, I start to gag. Anyways, if you know how I feel about the other two teams, that two of the other four. But anyways, beside the point. When I put the question about evaluate Jordan Love in the chat, I knew the answer I was going to get from every single one of you on that panel, because every single one of you on that panel are listening to what everybody's saying, which is, no, we don't know. There's too many unknowns with Jordan Love. He's not Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he's going to stink. He's going to be mid. He doesn't have that many weapons.
I said worse than mid, by the way.
I'm going to put an end to the mid, the worse than mid, like you said, which was absolute blasphemy. I hope you know that. That was so far out of pocket that the pocket is in the Missouri River right now, okay? The pocket is chilling in a different county.
I'm just trying to see the Packers' schedule right now, so I can put a reminder on my phone after like week 4 to where
I can pull it up right here. Right. So you mean after a Thursday night game against Detroit? Is it? It's my home screen on my phone. Okay.
Oh, it's just your home screen.
Yeah.
How long will that last?
Dog. There's a reason the 3 of those guys are that wallpaper, because those 3 guys, Jordan Love, Aaron Jones, Kenny Clark, that's the core for the Green Bay Packers right now.
Can you imagine just looking at their first 5 games? You got the Bears, you got the Falcons, Saints, Lions, Raiders. 5 historically bad defenses or bad teams, and Jordan Love's going to get exposed before then. It's not even going to be against teams like the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Eagles or the Cowboys. It's going to be of the mid NFL or worse than mid NFL teams. Just so you know.
I'm going to push back big time. Who did Jordan Love's first career start come against, Michael? Remind me.
Who did it come against?
Remind me. No, I want you to remind me. Who did his first career start come against?
You would know. You're the Packers guy.
The Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. It's a heck of a way to have your first career start.
How did he do?
Who did he come in? What game did he come into last year? Go 5 for 6 with a touchdown to Christian Watson. Oh, yeah, the eventual NFC champion defense of the Philadelphia Eagles. His first preseason start this year. Who was it against? Oh, yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals first-team defense. He went 6 for 8 with a touchdown. Case closed. All these national pundits and then you and your panel that say Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, we don't know who any of these people are. They're no-name receivers. Think about this. Aaron Rodgers didn't care to run anything with those guys. He hardly looked their way in games unless he had to. The majority of the reps in practice were for Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard. Where are they? With Aaron in New York. Jordan Love was working in practice, in warm-ups, for the most part with, who? Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Samori Toure. Then they draft Jaden Reed, like the best slot receiver punt returner in college football last year statistically. Look it up. Pro Football Focus says he was. They signed a tight end who's basically the second coming. They draft a tight end who's the second coming of Travis Kelce. He runs a 4.40 and can eat a Big Mac in 10 seconds. And then you said that there was no star power on this team. Au contraire. May I interest you in Jair Alexander? Top 5 corner in football. Look at what he did against the best receivers in the game last year. Made Justin Jefferson look like a child. Made Stephon Diggs look like a kindergartner. Strapped every single guy he covered, except for Terry McLaurin, but we're not going to talk about that.
How about we go to the offensive side of the ball? Where are your stars?
You have stars.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You seem to forget that there's this whole Thunder and Lightning duo thing in the backfield there, buddy. You seem to forget that Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are back there. Hey, Christian Watson can run too.
We're only good because teams had to respect the passing game of Aaron Rodgers. Okay? They're going to load the box up this year because they know Jordan Love won't be able to perform under pressure, both figuratively and literally. And if there's any way the Packers are going to beat a team, it would be the run game with Jones and Dillon. You know what? Cleveland had 2 better running backs last year and had a better quarterback than Jordan Love and Deshaun Watson. And look what happened. You guys are basically the NFC North Cleveland Browns right now.
Did Cleveland have 3 Pro Bowlers on their offensive line? No. Green Bay did.
Dude, it's
when you've got David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins leading the way for a stallion and then a dump truck in the run game, and when you've got somebody that you can throw the ball to on a jet sweep that runs like a record 40-yard dash time, that can take the ball on a sweep and then just outrun everybody stride for stride.
Dude, okay. You told me, in the last segment that you and I can provide unbiased takes on the Carolina Panthers because that's not our team, right? We gave our unbiased takes. Where's this unbiased take now that we're talking about the Green Bay Packers? Because nobody's taking you guys seriously. And they should.
No, they should.
You guys.
And it's because they're not taking the Green Bay Packers.
Division.
What?
Yes.
What? No, okay,
Yes.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
You guys are the worst.
Not only am I wearing the Packers Run the North shirt, you can't sit here and tell me that there's that stark of a difference between these 4 teams. To me, they're all really much at the same boat. Yeah, the Bears got DJ Moore. Fantastic. Justin Fields looked great in his first preseason game. You know how many air yards he had? 3.
Let's talk about the second half of last year for Justin Fields. Now, I'll go ahead and say I'm not completely bought into Justin Fields, but they're surrounding him with talent. They're surrounding him with DJ Moore, okay? Justin Fields has proven more on the NFL field than Jordan Love has. Then you have Minnesota.
I'll give you that.
Then you have Minnesota, who won the division last year. Okay, lose Dalvin Cook, lose Adam Thielen, but they went out and got Jordan Addison to be complimentary to Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the NFL. Minnesota, they remain consistent. They're just a regular season team. And then you have Detroit, who had the best offense last year. And on top of that, Detroit, after starting like 1-6, made a huge run in the second half of the year to get momentum, to get back to this point. Green Bay made a run. Regrets.
Green Bay made a run the second half too, but
with Aaron Rodgers,
you can't
on the back of number 12, who is
there's just not that big a difference, Michael. Everybody goes into the season thinking that the Vikings are the favorite. They do the same thing every year. Nothing has changed for them. I think the Lions would be more a favorite than the Vikings at this point, but everyone that is sleeping on the Green Bay Packers, you included, is not realizing the potential that this team has, the depth at every single position. I think even unbiased, there should be a lot more people that are not sleeping on the Green Bay. Yes, Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, both are top 10 corners. You got both of them. You got 3 really good safeties. You got the best kick returner in the NFL statistically last year in Keyshawn Nix. You got the best punter in the NFL per coffin corners last year, Pat O'Donnell. You got Jaden Reed, who was the best slot receiver and punt returner in football last year, college football. You've got depth up front. Rashawn Gary, he's healthy this year. You've got Kenny Clark in the middle. You've got Devondre Wyatt. You've got Quay Walker, who led all of God and Kingdom in tackles last year, had like 750 tackles. Anyways, we've gone too far with the Packers.
Are you finally happy about Lucas Van Ness as your draft pick, by the way?
I am. Yeah, yeah. As soon as I saw the guy played hockey and I saw the clip of him absolutely dummying a guy on the ice, I was like, great pick, Coot. Atta boy. Love it. Plus, just guys that come from Iowa and play for the Green Bay Packers are notoriously successful. Brian Balaga, to name just one, who, by the way, had the best Sunday Night Football intro of all time. Brian Balaga, Iowa. Didn't blink. Didn't twitch, nothing. Anyways,
dude,
very quickly. Let's get to the AFC here, because I feel like there's a lot more storylines in the AFC than there are in the NFC. We know what to expect in the NFC, kind of. We know what to look for. There's a lot more unknown in the AFC especially because of the two running back signings that happened just this week. The Ezekiel Elliott signing with the Patriots, Dalvin Cook going to the Jets. Everyone seems to be picking the Jets as the favorite in that division. Something that you've talked about a lot on your show is I don't really believe in the Bills all that much. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of potential chemistry problems with the Buffalo Bills. I also don't think the Jets are the favorite because I don't think the Jets have the O-line to sustain what they need to do. I don't think the Jets have the O-line to create enough space for Dalvin Cook. I also don't think that the Ezekiel Elliott signing moves the needle for the Patriots that much. I think the AFC East is just a whirlwind of uncertainty at this point. If my favorite in the AFC right now, if I'm having to pick one, it's Kansas City. Miami's not even on my radar right now. Not even close. Nobody in the AFC South is on my radar. Nobody in the AFC North is on my radar. Except maybe the Bengals. But, again, there's some unknowns there. There's a few things there as well that concern me that pop up. But, there's only 2 or 3 complete teams in the AFC. And, for me, none of them are in the AFC East right now. Everybody thinks that's the division to beat. The AFC West, by far, I think, is a stronger division when you look at how the teams are constructed. For me, there's just too many unknowns in the AFC East right now.
Dude, I think the AFC East is deeper than you're giving credit for. Like, I feel like Buffalo might be the AFC's Minnesota Vikings of doing really good in the regular season and then just faltering out towards the end. Again, there's concerns. They haven't fixed their running game. Like they refuse. The defense has been really good if they're healthy. Von Miller hasn't had a lot of healthy seasons. Miami, for the last several years, I've wanted to pick Miami as a good team. I just can't, especially with the uncertainty about Tua at quarterback. But the Jets, dude, you just don't want to admit that Aaron Rodgers leaves the Packers and goes to the Jets. Like, I feel like that's what this whole show has been, is you're like, we don't need Aaron Rodgers. We got Jordan Love. Yay! We got Jordan Love. It's like Aaron Rodgers, but like, the Wish version, or like, we got Aaron Rodgers at home. We got Jordan Love. And then he goes to the Jets, who legit only needed a quarterback to win that division last year. Okay. Zach Wilson was moving the ball like a yard. Now you go get Aaron Rodgers, and you surround Aaron Rodgers with Garrett Wilson in his second year. You have Corey Davis. You have two guys who he has chemistry with, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard. That's no issue. You got an offensive line that right side is like questionable, but you have Dwayne Brown at left tackle. I'm okay with that. And then you go out and you add Dalvin Cook to Breece Hall. Breece had a really good year before his injury. And again, that defense is remarkable. Like, I feel like Dalvin didn't move the needle, but solidified where the needle was. And that's the Jets being my favorite in this division. Patriots are going to be the worst. And it really stinks because I really like Zeke. He did really good for Dallas. I'm going to miss Zeke and his pass blocking. I'm going to miss Zeke more so without the ball. I'm also going to miss Zeke with his short yardage games that Dallas has holes at right now. But, man, Jets now have the best quarterback in this division. And you know how much I hate saying that because I've hated Aaron Rodgers for years. Mainly because
Now, that was out of pocket because Josh Allen still exists and is on the cover of Madden. Oh, wait. Hold on. We can't say he's the best if he's on the cover of Madden because that means he's going to tear his ACL in about 6 places. This is a curse thing. Oh,
yeah, like Peyton Hillis was the best running back when he was on the cover.
Somebody at EA Sports made a grave mistake when they picked a fullback who had about 6 carries all year.
How did that happen? I can't remember.
I don't know. You know, we said for the longest time we needed a documentary on that Florida team that had Aaron Hernandez and Tebow, and Netflix is giving it to us. Can we get one on how on God's green earth Peyton Hillis ended up on a Madden cover? No one even knew who he was. The cover came out, they were like, who is this guy? Who is this guy with this horseshoe face mask? You mentioned the Bills. You mentioned the Vikings. Before we go, this here that I'm holding on our video is a miniature Vince Lombardi trophy. The Bills and the Vikings are notorious for coming as close as this is to my camera right now and then blowing it. The epitome of great regular season teams. I think this year, we're going to see the Bills get to the Super Bowl. And they're going to come this close. Oh, so close. Another classic Bills Jim Kelly-esque moment happens. I leave you with that on our Super Football Preview show. Michael Davis,
who are they
thanks for coming and sparring with me.
Who are they losing to?
Who are they losing to?
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles are going to go back-to-back. You heard it here first. All right. We're done. Michael's still trying to process that because he hates Philly. But thank you, Michael, for coming on the program. Thank you, Steve Wiseman, as well, and our producer, Desmond Johnson. Michael, we'll see you Friday at 3 for Out of Pocket and all the other various stuff you do during the week. Keep it up, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see y'all next week.